Hello, everyone! Have you ever really stopped to think about all the different services we use every single day? From the electricity that powers our homes to the roads we travel on. Someone is providing them. Well, today, we're going to figure out exactly who that is. Just think about your morning for a second. You probably flicked on a light switch, maybe your school bus drove on a nice paved road, and perhaps you bought a notebook from a local shop. All of these things are services. But who makes them possible? That's the big question we're going to explore today. Now look at these two pictures. On one side, we have a postman, dutifully delivering mail. On the other, a shopkeeper running his own store. Now, both of them are providing really important services, right? But they work in completely different ways, and they represent the two major sectors that make up our entire economy. So how do we tell them apart? How do we classify them? Well, it all boils down to one very simple question. Who owns it? Who is responsible for the service? Ownership. That's the key that helps us understand and classify our whole economy. Okay, so first up, let's talk about the public sector. Just look at the name itself, public. This part of the economy is owned and run by the government, and it's meant to be for the benefit of all of us, the public. So what does this actually mean? To put it simply, in the public sector, it's the government that owns most of the assets. We're talking about the buildings, the equipment, the vehicles, all of it. And the government also takes on the big responsibility of providing these services directly to us, the people. And you know what? The public sector is all around us. Just think about the massive network of the Indian railways connecting our entire country, or the post office, making sure a letter can get to even the most remote village. Government schools that provide education, and government hospitals that provide healthcare to millions. These are all perfect examples. Now, this is a really important point to remember. The goal of the public sector is not to make a profit. Its main aim, its whole purpose, is public welfare, making sure that everyone, and I mean everyone, has access to these essential services. And how are they funded? Well, they're paid for by the money the government collects from all of us through taxes. Okay, so that's one side of the story. Now let's look at the other side of the coin, the private sector. As we're about to see, this one operates on a completely different idea. The definition here is pretty straightforward, right? In the private sector, the ownership is not with the government. Instead, it's in the hands of private individuals. That could be a single person or a family, or it could be with big private companies. And just like the public sector, examples of the private sector are absolutely everywhere. It could be the local grocery shop on your corner, or huge factories that produce things like cars. And of course, there are massive corporations that you've heard of, like Reliance Industries or the Tata Iron and Steel Company. All of them are part of the private sector. So unlike the public sector, the main motive here is crystal clear. The number one goal for any private business, whether it's big or small, is to earn a profit. They give us goods and services, and in return, their main aim is to make money. Okay, so let's put this all together and see it side by side. This is super important, especially for your exams. The biggest difference comes down to ownership and motive. For the public sector, it's owned by the government and the main motive is public welfare. For the private sector, it's owned by private individuals and the main motive is to earn a profit. It's really that simple. Okay, this leads us to a very, very important question. If the private sector is so good at providing so many things, why do we even need the government to get involved? Why do we need a public sector at all? Let's find out.
I mean, really think about it for a moment. Why can't a private company just build all our roads or run all the trains? Why does the government have to step in and handle these huge projects?
Well, there are a few very clear reasons for this. First, the cost is huge. Projects like building a railway network across the whole country need a ton of money, an amount that very few private companies can actually afford. Second, it's difficult to collect the money back. I mean, can you imagine trying to charge every single person who uses a public road? It's just not practical. Third is affordability. A private company has to make a profit, so they would probably charge very high prices for essential things, which would put services like electricity or clean water out of reach for many people. And finally, and this is the most important one, it comes down to social responsibility. It is the government's duty to make sure every citizen has access to basic facilities, no matter how much money they have. And that is why the government takes on these huge responsibilities. It builds our infrastructure, like roads and bridges. It provides electricity at reasonable rates, and it makes sure there are schools and hospitals for everyone. The government also supports our farmers by buying their crops at a fair price and helps ensure food security for the poor through things like ration shops. These are essential functions that the private sector just might not handle on its own. But wait, the government's role doesn't stop at just providing services. It's also about creating the right conditions for people to do well. And a huge part of that is making sure people have jobs. You see, a very important duty of the government is to help create employment opportunities for its people. This can be done by building big projects, running public services, or through special programs. Let's look at one really big example of this. And a fantastic example of this is a program called MGNREGA. That stands for the Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Act, which was passed in 2005. It's a very powerful law that actually gives people the right to work and creates a vital safety net for people living in rural areas. So what is the promise of the scheme? It boils down to this number: 100. Under MGNREGA, the government guarantees at least 100 days of paid work every year to rural families. And if the government can't provide the work, it actually has to pay them an unemployment allowance. This provides a basic level of economic security.
All right, that was a lot of information, wasn't it? So let's do a quick recap of everything we've learned. This will be really helpful for you to remember, especially for your exams. This table here sums it up perfectly. On one side, we have the public sector, owned by the government. Its motive is public welfare, and examples include Indian Railways and the post office. On the other side, we have the private sector, owned by individuals or companies. Its motive is to earn a profit, and examples range from huge companies like Tisco and Reliance to your very own local shops. So just to make sure you remember, these are the key terms from today's lesson. We talked about the public sector and the private sector. We understood that the main difference between them is based on ownership and their profit motive. We explored why government intervention is sometimes necessary and how it's all connected to the larger goal of social welfare. And now, I'm going to leave you with one final question to think about. We've looked at these two sectors separately, but how do they work together? How does the development of our country depend on having both a strong public sector and a healthy private sector? Think about that. Thank you so much for joining me today.